In this video, we're going to take a look at Standard 7.9b, which says that the student is expected to determine the circumference and area of circles. For this standard, the students need to be comfortable with using the STAR Grade 7 mathematics reference materials for several reasons. One is because there are important formulas provided on the reference materials, including the formula for circumference and area of circles. There's approximations for pi provided on the reference materials, and there are rulers that are provided. In some cases on the STAR test, students may be asked to use the ruler to measure dimensions before finding circumference and or area of circles. So let's take a look at the reference materials for grade 7. This is the reference chart that the students get to use on the day of the STAR test. On there we can see that there are two formulas provided for the circumference of a circle. The first formula says that the circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius of the circle. The other formula says that the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter of the circle. The formula for the area of a circle is also provided, and that formula is that the area equals pi times the radius squared. Under additional information, for pi, we are given two approximations. One is a decimal approximation of 3.14, and then there's a ratio of 22/7. So the students may use either one of these values when working with pi. So let's look at one of the released items from the 7th grade STAR test, and this is from the 2016 test. The problem says, Jennifer painted a tabletop that is shaped like a circle. The circumference of the tabletop is 6 pi feet. What is the area of the tabletop in square feet to the nearest hundredth? So I'm going to go ahead and write down the formulas that we need. So we know we're talking about circumference and area, so we could possibly need the formula of circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. We may also, or instead, use that the circumference is pi times the diameter of the circle. And then for the area of the circle, we know that that formula is that area equals pi times the radius squared. So when we look at the problem, they actually tell us that the circumference of the tabletop is 6 pi feet. So I'm going to write that as an equation. The circumference, or C, is equal to 6 pi feet. That looks very similar to this formula for circumference equals pi times d. So let's write this formula down and look at that. Circumference equals pi times d is the same as the circumference equals d times pi because of the commutative property of multiplication. Since we have two equations here, C equals 6 pi and C equals pi d, since those are both equal to C, or the circumference, I can set those equal to each other. So that's what I'm going to do. Pi, or d times pi, equals 6 times pi. I want to find the diameter, which is d, so we're going to isolate that variable by dividing both sides of this equation by pi. And that's going to leave us with the diameter, or d, is 6 feet. So now that we know the diameter, we can find the radius. If the diameter is 6, then we know that the radius of the circle is going to be 3. We know that because of the relationship between the diameter and the radius, that the radius is always half the length of the diameter. So now I'm going to use the formula for the area of a circle, which is that the area equals pi times the radius squared. I'm going to substitute in some values. Area is going to stay as a, that's what we're solving for. For pi, I'm going to use 3.14. And we know now that the radius is 3, and we have to square our radius. Using order of the operations, we're going to multiply our exponents, evaluate that first. So that means we now have that the area equals 3.14 times 9. We're going to finish multiplying. to get our area, which is going to be 28 and 26 hundredths feet squared.